So I believe we're on. We're on.
We're on the air. Hey, folks.
Hey.
So you are?
I am John Patrick Walker, JP to my friends. Mr. Walker to you, obviously. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. And I play Father in the current production right upstairs. We're in the green room, aren't we? Of A Wrinkle in Time, the musical.
Right. So you've been working on it for about a month now.
Well, we've been in performances, I guess, for about a month.
I saw it when it was in previews.
Almost exactly, yeah. It was like June 12th, and today's the 13th, right, of July. So it's been about a month of performances, and then before that, it was like, a couple weeks of tech rehearsals, and before that was the, rehearsals in the room for about 4 or 5 weeks. So I've been here since late April, but it's been
since late April.
I got here like right at April 29th. We started rehearsals, I think.
So how's it been so far overall?
It's been wonderful. I absolutely love this show. I did the workshop last summer here at Arena. It was like a 2-week workshop where we presented the show, but just with like music stands up in the rehearsal space. No costumes or anything like that. Minimal blocking. And so I've known, I've been like involved with this show since last year, and I think it's a really special piece of theater. I really love it.
What do you think is like? Do you see yourself in the character you play at all?
Oh my God! I was just reflecting on the fact, I play Father. I mean, there's no like, he doesn't have like a name in the piece. He's just sort of Father, and I am a father, and I do find that I really love sort of getting to embody a sort of almost father archetype in the show. This sort of ideal, father who gets lost, and his children actually rescue him, but he's the father figure of the family, and there's a lot of love between them. It's a very loving, happy family. It's a thriving, healthy family, and so I love playing the role, and I love the bringing that part of myself. Like it's really easy for me to like emotionally tap into the feelings that he would have about Meg. In other words, when I picture if it was my kid who had to go back to Camazotz after having just almost died and been like revived by aliens, and now is like going to actually to test her back to Camazotz, I get emotional because I'm just imagining my own, like if I had to really like send my own kid off into something, okay, not like through space, but like even just into like a dangerous situation or like a situation that was really risky, how would I feel immediately? I would feel worried and I would feel concerned, but then there's also that aspect of like, she's the only one that can do it, and she's being brave, and oh my God, I'm gonna like support her anyway. I'm gonna let her go. There's a part of him that's like, right before she decides to go, he's like, I'm not gonna let her go. He has the line, he says, I don't know who you guys are, but I'm not going to allow my daughter to go back to Camazotz into this danger alone. How could you even consider such a thing? And they're like, well, it's not for us to decide, it's for her to decide. And then she goes through the song about, Charles, can you hear me? What do you want me to do, right? And by the end of that, she's decided to go. And so it's a real inner journey for the father to be like, from a few minutes being like, there's no way I'm letting her go, to seeing that like, actually she's ready to do it. She's kind of the only one that can do it. And she's willing to be brave and risk it all, and so he lets her go. It's like a really powerful piece of drama, at least for me experiencing. I don't know how it feels to the audience, but like as an actor, it's very rich. It's like within 3 minutes I've gone from like I'm putting my foot down to like, okay, I'm going to let you go be in danger, and like hope I may never see you again. It's pretty intense.
So you've become very like attached to the characters. Have you enjoyed like working with the rest of the cast and everything?
Oh yeah, it's a great cast. I mean, it's a beautiful company. The creative team is wonderful. To me, it's been a total joy. It's hard for me to find any, downsides to this experience. So I feel very lucky, because that's definitely not always the case in a long career. You're bound to have, what's that music? Dee 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 dee. Maybe it'll just play forever. But you're bound to, I have, of course, had experiences where it's not quite that wonderful, like, or you don't get along with someone in the cast, or the piece itself is, not all that it could be, or, it's kind of disappointing on some level. And this has been one of those rare kind of peak experiences for me. So
where everyone's just chill and get along
I mean,
with
I think
everyone?
there's been drama and people have
Oh,
had their
really?
ups and downs, but like for me personally, it's been a great ride. I've enjoyed every second of it. So that's the truth.
So you mentioned like the music in the show.
Mm.
You do some singing in there as well, yeah.
In the show.
In the show,
I
yeah.
do a little. Yeah, I don't sing a lot in the show, which is fine. Yeah, I love to sing, but it's all good. I actually I do a bunch of offstage singing, sort of supporting the ensemble's tracks during testers and stuff like that. And I do sing on stage, but it's not a role that has a lot of singing. Um, on the one hand, it's kind of easy on my voice to do it 8 times a week, and even still, my voice is, you can hear it. It's a little ragged from just doing the show for a month.
I don't hear anything.
Well, I can feel it. I can
Yeah.
feel that it's just a little tired. So on one hand, it's kind of nice not to have to like sing a lot, because then you really have to be super careful with your voice, and I wouldn't be able to do something like this off stage because it's like taxing my vocal cords. Even just speaking is. Um, but yes, I do sing in the show, and I enjoy it.
And you make music.
I
You have-
do. I'm a songwriter, singer and songwriter. I've been making records very actively for like, I don't know, since almost like 15 years. I've been like really, I mean, I've been making music my whole life. I wrote my first song when I was like 8 years old. Um, and it's really been a love affair with songwriting ever since. I haven't, but it's only in the last, like I said, 10, 12 years that I've really decided to pour a lot of creative energy into it, because as an actor, the one downside is, for a lot of us, not for everybody, if you're a kind of actor who's like writing your own material and producing your own work, that's one thing. But for a lot of us, it's a lot of auditioning, saying pick me to be on your team, and a lot of rejection. There's
Right.
just tons of auditions that it's like, oh, you were great, they loved you, but it's going to go another way. Like, I've been told that hundreds and hundreds of times. And I've gotten work, of course. I've made a career out of this, but what I discovered, like I said, always loved songwriting. I was in bands like in high school and in college, and did a little bit of playing like solo stuff in my early 20s when I was in New York, writing a little bit. But then as I got into working more as an actor, that kind of went by the wayside. And even then, I didn't think of it as a real serious pursuit. It was something that I did for fun and for the love of it. So then cut to 10, 12 years ago, I had this kind of epiphany. I was feeling a bit of malaise, if you will, in my career. I was feeling a little kind of dissatisfied. I was working. It wasn't that there wasn't work, but it was just something was missing, and I wasn't sure what it was, a sense of fulfillment. And when I rediscovered songwriting and started really pursuing that and actually making records, I went to Nashville in 2011, and because I had a friend down there, and I'd written a song, and he brought me down, and we went into a studio with some of his buddies who are like amazing Nashville professional musicians, and we did this track, and it was like the happiest, most joyous creative experience that I'd had in a very long time, because here was something that I made up, a song, some words strummed on a guitar, and I brought it into a studio with great musicians, and we created this incredible, 20-track, beautiful rock and roll tune that I couldn't believe it. I was like a little kid on Christmas or something. I was like a kid in a candy store. I don't know what other metaphors I can use, but I really was like, this is incredible. And it was self-generated. It's like I paid for the musicians. I hired them. They gave me like a friends and family discount rate. It wasn't like super expensive, but like I produced this piece of work, and it gave me a real sense of like empowerment. Whereas again, as an actor, so often you're like, can I be on your team? And sometimes yes, but even then, you're sort of a cog in a wheel. You're part of the machine. You're there to help someone else's vision come to life. Like with this, I'm here to serve the piece, and I'm happy to, and I love it, and I'm inspired by it. But I am at the service of someone else's vision, essentially. And I love that. It's not a bad thing, but to find as an actor that I could also do this other thing that was completely my own thing, my own gig, my own creation, and that I could sort of self-generate it and make it happen as long as I could afford to like do it, or even just doing home demos. Like I literally made a demo this morning for like 4.5 hours. I was just home writing a new song and recording it I have a home like digital recorder, multi-track recorder that I play with, and putting bongos down and backup vocals and guitar and keyboards, and that's like my happy place. It just gives me total I lose all sense of time, and I'm just totally focused, and it makes me super duper happy. So, um, so that's like my side gig. Although it's really creatively, it's my primary joy is like songwriting and singing and making records.
So is it more about like performing the music or like writing it?
Honestly, it's not as much about performing. I do enjoy playing gigs and playing my music live. I don't do it a lot. Um, the real joy is writing, arranging, and recording. That is just total joy to me. And then once it's recorded, getting to listen back to what I've done is like just extremely gratifying. Sometimes obviously I listen back and go, "Oh, that's not right," or I'm dissatisfied. I want to change it, and there's of course those moments too. It's not like it's all smooth sailing and pure bliss. There's a lot of work that goes into sometimes songwriting, creating a song. You struggle with making the structure of it and finding the right words, and it's a laborious thing at times, but it's a happy labor. It's like a joyful effort.
Is there any amount of it where you use it to kind of vent in some way?
Totally, event or express feelings about the world. It's very therapeutic for me because I can write about the climate catastrophe that's going on, and again, you if I'm going to write about stuff like that, you want to do it in a way that doesn't feel like speechifying or didactic or like boring. You want to make it interesting and artistic and hopefully kind of beautiful and satisfying to listen to in some way. So it's tricky with politics or with society to talk about, but I have found ways into talking about that stuff and just talking about personal heartache and loss. I mean, really, I should have even said what brought me back to music 12 years ago was my mother dying. She was only 68 years old, and she got cancer, and it was very sad. And that was right around the time she was, going into like passing on. I mean, she was still with us. Is when I wrote this one song that wasn't about her. It was actually just a kind of a silly song. But I realized, but then so I was able to play that song for her, the one I did in Nashville, right before she died. And then I spent the next year after she passed going back to Nashville with other songs, including I wrote especially like this one about her called Miss You Mama, very sad kind of, I was really grieving, and I wrote this song about like missing her. And so that it was a beautiful way to channel my grief into something creative and fun and, beautiful, hopefully. And my mom and I shared a real love of music and the Beatles and rock music and folk and jazz and everything, big band. She and I really shared that love. So finding my way to music through the grief of losing her was like, it was like alchemy, it was like taking pain and making something, beautiful and joyous out of it. It was like super cool.
So you mentioned the Beatles. What is that something you listen to?
The Beatles are pretty primary for me. When I was born, the Beatles were still alive. It's like I've been around a long time. And so my parents had Beatles records in the house, and some of my very earliest memories, probably at like 3 or 4 years old, I'd learned how to, they had a turntable, and I learned how to like put the record on and drop the needle, and I would like sit and try to read. I feel like it's not totally true, but that I kind of taught myself to read or helped learn to read. I had, my parents read to me and did all the things that parents do, but I would spend time, trying to read and decipher lyrics to like the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band record, which was the lyrics are printed on the back of the album. And so it opened up, and I think that's part of where my love for music comes from, is as a very small like sponge of a toddler. I was listening to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Sgt. Pepper's and A Day in the Life and all these kind of heavy but cool and trippy and psychedelic and far ranging in terms of style songs. Not just the Beatles. They had other records that I loved. The Music Man, the Broadway cast recording of The Music Man was something that I played a lot as a very small child. The Broadway cast recording for Hair, which was, I don't know if you know Hair, but it's like this hippie countercultural musical that was devised in New York City at the Public Theater, in the late 60s, and it was about hippies and and being against the Vietnam War. It was a very political record. But so I would listen to this stuff that I didn't understand any of it. I was like 5 or 4, but I found it musically and lyrically and everything just totally captivating. So that stuff is very But the Beatles, I mean, I listen to the Beatles regularly. They're very important to me.
What else do you listen to?
I mean, of like newer stuff, I'm obsessed with a band called the Lemon Twigs. These are young guys from Long Island, incredible musicians. They're brothers. Brian and Michael D'Addario have this band called the Lemon Twigs. They're great. I love Father John Misty. I think he's a great songwriter. I mean, I love like Doechii. I think is an incredible hip hop rap artist. I listen to jazz. I listen to classical. I love pretty much all forms of music and listen to it a lot. So,
Are you are you inspired more by the more classic, influential, sort of like big artists, or the more indie, smaller artists?
I like all of it. I love finding. I mean, it's like the Lemon Twigs are this very indie, not a huge following. I mean, they're doing actually in a way very classical kind of pop, Baroque pop that's heavily influenced by the Beatles as well as the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. That's another band that I revere. So in a way, they're like descendants of these great groups. But I love finding something that's really off kilter and weird and like never going to be a top 10 hit or whatever. I love finding oddball stuff as well. Yeah, for sure.
So, how long have you been acting for?
I've been acting since like I was 8 years old. I did my first professional theater gig was in 1977. I was 8 turning 9, and they paid me $1 every performance, which was very sweet. And of course, as an 8-year-old, it's like I was so excited. I got to go and be on stage with like professional adult actors. This was at the Yale Repertory Theater in New Haven, where I grew up. So I'm working with pros, grad students, Yale grad students, and then these pros from New York, in these totally amazing plays. The first play I did was a Bertolt Brecht, play. I just had a little walk on. I didn't even have any lines, but I was totally delighted, to be a part of this thing called theater, and subsequently from that first play that I was asked to be in, the Yale rep kept calling me back, and I must have done, from the time I was 8 to about 14, I must have done a dozen shows at Yale. Again, always working with either, just grad students who I revered. They were like so cool. They were all like in their early 20s and chain smoked cigarettes and were really funny. And, hanging out with them was like, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, was just so fun. Working with some great directors. And again, they would always bring in professionals from New York to work with the grad students. And so that was my intro to theater. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon for college. I mean, I did theater in high school. I went to Carnegie Mellon drama in Pittsburgh for 4 years, got my BFA, and then moved to New York and got a waitering job and an agent, and started, learning how to audition and pounding the pavement. Eventually got my, Actors Equity, my union card, and started doing some more theater. And then that led to television stuff, guest roles, and eventually got like the lead on a TV series. And that was, moved out to LA and was like the star of a TV series on Fox. It didn't last long. It did not do well in the ratings, but it was a great experience. It was like filmed in front of a live studio audience, and I was, the star of the show. It was called Holding the Baby, and I played a dad again. I played a single dad whose wife has run off with her yoga instructor and left me holding the baby. That was the name of the show. And so I had this, this baby and a high-powered, high-pressured career. So it was about this man, juggling baby and career. So anyway, yeah, it's been a very interesting career, and I quit my waitering job in 1994 and told myself I'm never going to wait tables again. But I sort of say this semi-jokingly, but it's still kind of my fallback option. Like, I don't take it for granted that I haven't had to wait tables since then. Like, I've been lucky, but I still kind of feel like if I went belly up in my career, I'd probably be handing out menus. What can I get you? You want to Coke with that? You want a side salad or a big salad? I could do that if I had to.
Do you prefer playing characters that are like more similar to yourself or different?
Um, I think it really depends. Sometimes it's really fun to have the challenge of playing someone that feels like it's not who you really are, like a villain or you know something like that. Of course, is like playing King George in Hamilton was great fun because to play a king who's kind of a bastard and as written in Hamilton, of course, he's kind of insecure. He's sort of feeling rejected by America, right? And that's sort of the joke of those songs. You'll be back, and the reprises is he's like the jilted lover. Essentially is what the king is in Hamilton. So that's obviously nothing like me, right? But very very fun to play. And then like I said, like playing father in this show is something much closer to me, and I love that too. So it really depends.
What other shows have you enjoyed working on?
Well, I did. I don't know if you know the show Peter and the Starcatcher. It's a play with music. It's not a full-on musical, but it was on Broadway 2012-ish. And then when it closed on Broadway, they transferred it because it was still doing quite well. But I guess whatever, it's so expensive to keep a show up on Broadway unless you're really selling out. So what they did is they closed it on Broadway and reopened it in a smaller, technically off-Broadway theater, but still up in like Times Square. And so I got cast in the transfer. I didn't do it on Broadway, but did it, again, technically off Broadway. But for about a year, I did this play, and that was a joy. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of theater, Peter and the Starcatcher. I did Young Frankenstein, the musical, on Broadway. I was standby for both Dr. Frankenstein. I don't know if you know the movie Young Frankenstein.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you got to see it, dude. It's so funny. Mel Brooks movie, 1974. It's great, hilarious.
Put it on my list.
And it's sending up the Frankenstein movies from the 30s, the classic, Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. It's sort of like a send up of that. It's called Young Frankenstein. And they made it into a musical. Mel Brooks adapted it for the stage. So I got to play I was standby, like I said, for the two male leads and got to do both the role of Dr. Frankenstein and the role of Igor. And that was hard, learning two tracks and having to sometimes switch back and forth on subsequent nights. But great fun because I love that movie and I love the material, and getting to like meet Mel Brooks and work with him a little bit was fantastic. I mean, gosh, what else? I got to play John Lennon in a concert at Carnegie Hall some years back, and we toured with the show around the country, so I've done it in lots of different places. But playing Carnegie Hall is a sort of iconic venue, and so it was a thrill to not only be on stage at Carnegie Hall singing, but singing A Day in the Life from the Sgt. Pepper record. So again, it's sort of like coming full circle from my early childhood reverence for this music to then find myself portraying John Lennon in a piece called 1969 by this ensemble music group called Alarm Will Sound. And but I got to sing A Day in the Life with an orchestra, as John Lennon at Carnegie Hall. So that the stuff like that is very peak experience kind of stuff for me. Yeah.
So you've talked about doing all sorts of types of theater performances. How much does it differ between doing like Broadway stuff and more like community theater type stuff?
Well, I mean, the obvious differences are money. I mean, it's like with a show at Arena, you can have a beautiful set and an incredible band and, all the bells and whistles and great costumes. And, it's just all top tier talent. When you're doing community theater, it's going to be scrappier, right? It's going to be, but sometimes the scrappy thing can be really just as fulfilling. It doesn't, in other words, you don't need all of that for it to be fulfilling. I think when it comes right down to it, if you have an audience and you have actors and you're willing to, and the audience wants to hear a story and you have a story to tell, you can make total magic in a basement with folding chairs and a table and, a couple, you know what I mean? It's like, you actually don't need much to make magic in the theater, which is one of the great things about theater, I think, is that that's true. Whereas, like, to make a movie, you've got to have some kind of budget. I mean, even with a movie, right? You can have a movie made on a phone with, like, minimal budget and make something great. And you can also have $1 billion and make, whatever, a Christopher Nolan movie or something. So even that, there's a similarity. But I think with theater, it can be so basic. You could have a sheet for a curtain, 2 chairs, and 2 actors, and you can make something magical, which is just cool.
Is there much of a difference in the experience when it's like just community theater versus like
Broadway.
doing it as a career?
Is there something different about it?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Well, sure. I mean, it's very rewarding to find yourself on a Broadway stage, making some nice money, and playing to huge audiences. I mean, that of course that feels elevated in a sense, and it feels like, wow, this is special, and I'm really lucky. And you might not feel that same sense of like, whoa, doing a thing in a basement of a church, like for 10 people. But at the end of the day, the satisfaction is kind of the same. Do you know what I mean? In terms of what really makes it a magical thing. Obviously, it's cool to be on Broadway, or to be like touring the country in Hamilton was thrilling because every night's a sellout. Every night the audience is so excited to see Hamilton. Every night the audience is so excited to see King George walk out on stage. Oh, here's another highlight. I got to sing "You'll Be Back" to astronauts on the space station.
Really?
Which was like very cool. I was like, how many people have gotten to like sing directly to astronauts in space? And then not only that, I had just put out a record right before this ended up happening, and so the wife of one of the astronauts was able to send him the digital files of my new album to the space station, and he was like, dude, we played your record up here. So my record, and this was actually another Nashville record that I made in 2019. So I went back to Nashville again and made another album with these same people. Much more recently, I had just come off the Hamilton tour. In fact, went to Nashville. So, but that's crazy. It's like, that's just a beautiful thing to like have my original stuff like played on the space station. Like, not too many humans probably can say that that's happened for them. So it's kind of mind blowing to me.
So do you get more energized with like a larger audience?
In terms of audience, size does matter, right? I mean, if you're playing to 3 people, it can be a little depressing. You know what I mean? Obviously, it depends on the space. I mean, again, if you're doing community theater in a basement and the space like capacity is 25 people, then you're gonna feel it's hey, 25 people, I got a full house. Great, this is as big as it gets, 25. If I'm playing up here to 25 people upstairs, it's going to feel sad because it holds 500 people. So I mean, it's all about sort of scale and proportion to where you're playing. But again, with a big audience, yeah, you're just going to get hopefully that much more energy from them. But I will also say, that sometimes in a really huge house, it can feel kind of cavernous, and you almost feel like a lot of the audience is far away from you. Whereas in a small, intimate space, you really feel like the visceral response of each and every person in the room. So you know what I mean? It's all kind of dependent on like various factors.
Right. How much does it like the repetitiveness of it, how much does that affect affect your enjoyment at all?
Or infect my enjoyment?
Yes.
It can over time. I mean, I did Hamilton like 600 times or something, and you get a little cuckoo after a while doing it 600 times, and especially with a show like Hamilton and with that particular track, there's no room for like improvisation, or like, tonight I'm gonna take it at a slower tempo, or like, tonight I'm gonna add a little something. Like, it's always pretty much has to be exactly the same in a show like Hamilton, where you're playing to a rhythmic, it's like, it's all sung. I mean, it's like an opera almost. Whereas at least if you're doing, let's say, a play with spoken dialogue, you can vary things a little bit. You can find variation. You know, you can say like, tonight I'm going to try a different tack on the way I approach the scene, and that can help you not be affected by the repetition as much. But anytime you do a really long run, it can get challenging to keep it fresh. But that's what I was saying earlier about the audience helps you keep it fresh, because every time they come in, they're brand new to it. So you feed off their receptivity, you know. What would truly be hellish if you had to do a show 600 times and it was the same audience every night, you know, then you'd all be in the sixth circle of hell. But fortunately, that's not the way it works. Thank God.
So back to the music stuff.
Yeah.
You recently came out with an EP.
I did. You've
Last
done your
Night
research.
I Dreamt.
That's right. Last Night I Dreamed.
Last Night I Dreamed.
Yeah. Yeah. A 3-song EP. I put out a full album in December called Simple Pleasures that I'm very proud of. So if anyone's checking this out, you should find the album
On
Simple
Spotify.
Pleasures. It's on Spotify, and the EP contains 2 songs that were kind of left off that album, basically. Not because they weren't, I didn't like them or something, but really just for space, because I decided to make vinyl. So I actually made vinyl records of my album in December, which was, again, kind of coming full circle to my memories as a child, listening to records on my parents' stereo system. I just love records. I love vinyl. So I made vinyl for the record in December. Couldn't fit all the tracks on. I would have had to make like a double album or something. So I left them off, and that's what so the EP comprises 2 of the tracks that I left off the record, plus this new one called Last Night I Dreamed. And that's an example. The title track, Last Night I Dreamed, touches on the situation we find ourselves in right now politically. The refrain, the chorus of the song, the words are, the world insists on spinning this blue marble round the sun, and the narcissists seem to be winning. They've all got us on the run. But then the final verse switches it up a little bit and says, and the world insists on spinning this miracle round the sun, and the C word, C-U-N-T-S, only seem to be winning. One day they'll be all on the run. And that's how the song ends. So trying to end on a note of like these insane people that are trying to destroy our country, won't. These things always fail eventually. Hopefully they won't do any, terrible damage. I mean, they already are, but what can I say?
So with your lyrics, do you try to be more poetic, or do you try to just like get down your thoughts as accurately as you can?
I mean, I think because of my Beatles influence, and not just Beatles, but that kind of stuff that's very heavy on melody and flow, I do like to create lyrics that sound good, that flow well, and I like to use alliteration and, rhymes within lines, so, I mean, for instance, that line, the world insists on spinning this blue marble around the sun, and the narcissists seem to be winning. So narcissists and insists, these words kind of echo each other. So that kind of thing I enjoy with songwriting, creating sort of poetic sounding, groupings of words and so forth. Yeah.
What are your like favorite instruments to use in songs?
I'm not a great player of any particular instrument. I play decent rhythm guitar. I can sort of play chords on a piano and a little bit of noodling, and I love percussion. So I enjoy playing, and I play a little bit of bass on some of my records. I like playing all of it. I mean, guitar is my main instrument. I play that the most, and I love guitar. But I can't like shred any solos for you. I'm not able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Is any of your music on like physical media?
Well, that's I've made 3 vinyl records so far. My very first album, the one that I kind of made for my mom, called The Guilty Party. I have that on vinyl. My follow-up was called People Going Somewhere. Came out in 2016, and that's also available on vinyl. And then my latest, Simple Pleasures, is available on vinyl. But then I have several albums. For instance, the one that was played in outer space, that's only available digitally. Like I just didn't. It's expensive to make vinyl, and so I've got a few other records and EPs that are only available digitally, but they're on Apple and Spotify and wherever else you find streaming.
What do you think about the like the importance of physical media?
I think it's great. Like I said, I love listening to records. I still collect vinyl and have a turntable, and I think the experience of listening to a record is different than, I have Spotify on my phone and I listen to it a lot, and it's convenient and it's mind blowing that you can carry around basically the history of recorded music in your pocket. I mean, that's just an amazing thing. But I love physical media. What are your interests? I mean, do you have an artistic, enjoyment or pursuit or dream?
I mean, I'm kind of doing lots of stuff right now.
That's
I
good.
also have been making a lot of music
Oh, cool.
recently. Like
Awesome.
I think kind of similar to like what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know some guitar chords and everything.
Right.
But I just like arrange it like synths digitally and like drums and everything.
Yep. That's cool. Like GarageBand or something
FL
similar.
Studio.
Okay. Nice.
I like to like draw occasionally. I like to write. I tend to write more like essays type stuff. Whether it's like an analysis or like documentary type stuff. This is actually kind of part of that.
Okay.
I've been wanting to do more interviews.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to, I don't know, dig into some
Pick
kind of
someone's
story.
brain and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, hear their story. Well, you seem really good at it. Seems like you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You. It's very easy to
Thank
talk
you.
to you. So good job.
Maybe I was thinking maybe I could I'll have to write a review of A Wrinkle in Time since I've seen it so many times.
I think you're allowed at this point. You've seen it so many times.
Is there a point when I'm not allowed?
If you see it 10 times, then you're not allowed. That's too many. Now you got to just go take a rest.
You're biased at that point.
Yeah, you won't be able to be objective at all. No, I think at any point you're of course allowed to write, but yeah, I think you've earned a good review. I hope you'll be kind to us, especially to me, because I'm sensitive.
I'll probably
Tear me apart.
definitely yeah.
It's gonna tear me apart. I know it.
I'll probably be like using something that we've talked about here to some of the stuff we've talked about
Cool.
here today.
Great.
In the review.
Okay.
I'm planning to talk to some of the other actors as
good.
well.
Yeah. Well, I will look forward to that. Hopefully, you'll send it to me when you've got it.
Yes, I
when
will.
you've got it written.
I'll put it up online.
Oh, great.
Get it edited into a more
Cohesive.
cohesive.
Don't use AI. Just do it yourself.
No AI,
No AI.
but don't use it as a replacement for artistic
please
output.
don't. Please don't. Well, I should probably
Probably get going.
get my face on and so forth. My false nose and my wig. No, I don't
Your
wear
little glasses with
my-
the nose and the
my
mustache.
exactly. But I'm glad we had a chat. It was
Thanks
nice.
for coming on and
Hey,
having
was a-
speaking some words.
total pleasure speaking words at you. I hope you enjoyed it.
I definitely did.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Peace out.
Peace out.